And I think all credit goes to you and for the kind of speakers that have spoken before me and are going to follow me. Um I think Mahesh, as usual, has been wonderful, and so has been Vaibhav and the doctor, the cardiology doctor and the neurosurgery doctor. I think the amount of, I think every year we are seeing solid growth with technology, and I'm glad I'm part of this industry. I'm glad that we are part of this revolution where we can do something good for our people and for India as such and put India on a pedestal. So, thank you again for the opportunity. All right. So, I'll share my screen and then we'll start off. Yeah. Okay. Are you able to see my screen, Shibu? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. All
Yes.
right.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Fine. All right. Okay. So once again, thank you, Shibu, for the opportunity. And I think today it's we've come to a state where technology plays a very very important life. I mean, we've gone through the worst with the pandemic, and we've seen. I think the pandemic mostly helped us realize what is important, and I think a lot of us are now prioritizing on health because once that gets affected, there's no point in us doing the rest of the things. And some of the sectors which you will notice during the pandemic, what were the sectors that were open, and what were the sectors which was functioning. And I think additive manufacturing was one of the sectors which was very very busy, performing, helping the surgeons hand to hand in whatever way possible. So I think it's glad I'm glad I am proud that I'm part of this revolution, and I'm glad to see all of you here also to look at what 3D printing can do. And healthcare has been a wonderful space. Every other, yes, there are a lot of other sectors which are doing great work, but healthcare is very very special to us because there's nothing like looking at a smile on a patient when you have restored them, especially from a surgeon's point of view. All the doctors before me spoke about how how they were using technology and how it helped make their lives better and also make the lives of the patients better. That's what we want to. So my role here is to talk about what does 3D printing do in reconstructive surgeries of the face, how is it helpful, and I'm here just to show a few cases. A lot of theory has been already said, so I won't repeat them. Just a few things, and then we'll take it on into what are the couple of cases that I have to show you. So I'm Dr. John. I'm a maxillofacial surgeon by profession. Yes, and I'm also the director for Center for Technology Assisted Reconstructive Surgery, a partner for CCC now, which is a company that we just starting in Canada, uh, and also as a consultant and joint secretary for 3D Para. Shibu has been very, very instrumental in the growth of stars. So I again want to take that opportunity for him. I've been with 3D printing for the last almost 15 years now, right from my post graduation days from 2005. Seen it grow from a very, very nascent stage to what it is now. And in my opinion, we are just still about maybe the first or the second step, and we still have a long, long way to go with additive manufacturing and 3D printing. But I'm glad India is taking the initiative, and I'm glad the younger generation of surgeons are extremely enthusiastic about technology. So that's the plus. That's the plus. That's the big plus. And the coming in of newer companies in India making solid investments into bringing technology on. So it's all boosting us, and I think the ultimate beneficiary will be all of us: surgeons, engineers, the patients, basically, and also technology. So I want to share about what it does in tech in with reconstructive surgery, and we'll take it forward from there. Science has way, 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 way moved from where we were 100 years ago, from how we would see technology. And I mean, I think the true word for practice, no, like when I say I'm going for my practice, it means actually every time that we want to, if the doctor improved himself, improved on his hand skill every time he operated. But today, you can't do that easily, right? Today, we know there are lots of countries which are stopping practicing on cadavers. Cadavers are not available. In India, I mean, I still know, I mean, though there was used to be plenty of cadavers for doctors to go practice in their anatomical lab, that's becoming limited now because of a lot of legal issues and stuff. So technology is overtaking them. Okay, now with technology, you can do things again and again and again till you're perfect. And once you have perfected it, then you can hit the bullseye. That's the biggest advantage with technology. And science and technology are joining in more than one ways. My lecture is purely going to be practical. I'm not a theoretical or an academic person. When we saw technology, we grabbed it with both my hands and I said, okay, this is the future. Because that time in 2005 to 8, everybody, most of the maxillofacial surgeons wanted to look at uh, joining oncology, joining clefts, joining microvascular. I wanted to do something called as computer assisted surgical service. So that's the interest that we started with. Okay, so here I am, and most of the surgeries that I do here at Apollo are all technology oriented. I mean, there's not a case that we would touch without using some form of technology. It can be your models or your scans or your customized implant, but there's some touch in technology in almost all the procedures that we do. So I come from this concept from, okay, now if you assume that what is accepted as true is really true, then there is very, very little scope for advances. This words is by the Wright brothers and it's 100 years old. And even today, it makes a lot of sense. What are we doing? I mean, I think the surgeons before me who spoke to you are reinventing, right? They're looking at a situation, a pathology, and what would normally not be possible conventionally, they're saying, can we look at it differently? Now, when you start looking at it differently, when you start questioning, okay, is this the only way possible, or can I use some help from technology, and can I make it better? When you start doing that, there's a lot of scope for advances, and that needs to go in. India today is spending a lot on innovation, and I think I should be proud for the government of India and the Prime Minister for taking a lot of interest on innovation and pushing it forward. We need to make use of that. We need to capitalize on that drive and see what best we can do to take on an innovation. The engineers, my dear friends, I mean, I know there are a lot of engineers here. The engineers are making maximum use of innovation. I found it very, very little with respect to surgeons. So I think it's high time the younger generation, next generation of postgraduates, of students and doctors start looking at how are you going to look at innovation in every field that you take, and how can it make things better. So when we talk of reconstructive surgeries of the face, what do you mean? Because when you say reconstructive surgery, that's a big word, right? You're trying to play God, but is it actually possible? Can we do that? Can we reconstruct something which was destroyed? Can we reconstruct something which was lost? How did we do it before? Earlier, when you looked at a case of trauma, so I'll show you a couple of cases of trauma. The first primary thing when you handle emergency traumas is, I mean, that's what, I mean, as a postgraduate, that's the primary thing any maxillary surgeon will look at. ABC. You look at first restoring the airway, restoring breathing, and you look at restoring circulation. That should be there. You should not, that's the primary focus, right? So then looking at cosmetics was never primary those days. I still know India is a hub for reconstructive surgeries because we are extremely good in resective surgeries. Open it up, cut it, take whatever we have standard, place it, and then we are out of that. That is what we are very good. Now the new concept is on reconstruction. How do we restore what is lost? That is very important. And that with technology is a cakewalk, I think. And one of the branches of additive manufacturing which is really matured and is almost there, I would say more than 50% of its maturity is surgeries or technology assisted surgeries on the head and neck. Like you say, like what Dr. Mahesh said, in the cardiology, they are still at prototyping, modeling, and at planning, not yet come on to customized implant. Neurosurgery, again, on more on prototyping, more on planning, complications, but not yet implant. But face, you've already on prototyping, you've done extremely well with the virtual surgical planning of the face, and on customized implant today is doing, I mean, most of the people, surgeons are doing it left, right, and center. So if you're not there, it means there's something wrong. You're missing the bus. In another 2 years' time, if you guys are not using technology for reconstruction of the face, boss, there is an issue that we need to start addressing. Okay, so what do we do that? Now let's look at the case like this, a classical case of a tumor. What would we have done? Our options: the section, and then the first and still the golden standard would be to use a microvascular reconstruction. But yes, it has a lot of pluses, but it has a lot of minuses. Extremely technique sensitive. Okay, and still restoration of the face is still 50-50, right? And the chances of failures are very, very high. So that's a possibility. So how do you do that with additive manufacturing or 3D printing? Can we do that for benign cases only, or do we do that for malignant cases? Can we? Today it is possible. Number two would be facial asymmetries. A lot of procedures now that we get at STARS are now coming around facial asymmetries. It used to be a purely a plastic domain or a orthognathic domain where you would operate, try to put in a graft and leave it. But then today, this is all coming on into additive planning. As doctors, more and more doctors are moving on into virtual simulation and planning. We are trying to restore the patient's face. And today, our patients are also becoming more and more conscious, right? They want to look good. Any other procedure on the other part of the body, yes, it is very critical and crucial and complex. But on the face, it is very straight. No, you can see the results the next day. So if we don't do a good job, the patient will straight away come to you and say, "Man, what is it? You messed it up. This is not what I wanted." It is very obvious. Your results are immediate. That's why cosmetic surgeries of the face are, according to me, need a lot of planning. And if you can cover cosmetic surgeries or facial asymmetries using planning, then you can do almost any surgeries on the face. So that's the way we look at it. Trauma, yes, like I said, okay, how do you plan trauma? Primary trauma, we still are not there, but can we do things for secondary trauma? Can we do that? Or is it just an augmentation procedure that you're going to work for trauma? Secondary correction, a lot of procedures now where they have done conventional implants, the implants have failed, and they would come back to us and say, John, can we do something better for these people? So that's again another indication for reconstructive surgery. And obviously congenital patients who are born with this didn't feel it as an issue till they reach school or till they came to achieve puberty, or when they're going to look at marriage as an issue. Now it becomes very conscious. Now they're very conscious, right? Because it's so obvious what the way they look. So can we work on them? Can we do something for them? So these are problems that people will come in and where reconstructive surgeries are being done. Now, how does this work? Is where you need to have a collaborative team, a team of orthodontists, a team of maxillary surgeons, a team of plastic surgeons if needed, and so on and so forth, and technologists. Now, that's the addition now onto this team. And so, can we make it better? Can we make the lives of these patients better? So, let's look at a few cases of what we have done. A very few. I'm not going to take more time on this. Maybe another 5-10 minutes, and then we are done. Conventional methodology, how we used to do it is we would scan the patient, and then there would be a tray of standard implant screws that were available. So we would take what is standardized and then we would operate on this patient, which means that we may have to trim the patient's bone, the anatomy to accommodate what was there, or bend the plates and structures like that. So far, so good, right? I mean, I think I've seen surgeons who've done awesome work with facial trauma with standard plates. But now that can be made a little bit better. So how is it going to be made? So the way we treat our patients today is changing, and thanks to additive manufacturing, that is changing big time today. So the surgery is way different than we are. Today we have an option of working on robotics. Navigation surgery has come today into place where we can actually look at the patient's plan surgery in the surgery, and we can actually see whether what we have done real time, is it good or bad. I mean, have we placed the plate correctly? Has it adapted right? If not navigation today, even most hospitals who don't have navigation today, we have the option of using a C-arm to immediately evaluate how our implants are sitting on the patient's bone. That's how advanced we have gone. And dentistry. Dentistry, I feel, is one of the biggest branches who's using 3D printing in a very, very big time, because I think through centuries, dentistry has always been about customization. So I'm not going to talk about dentistry here, but more on reconstructive surgery. And we are glad that this is one of the industries which is going to be the top 30 technologies of the next decade. So why is 3D printing and healthcare today collaborating more? Why is it shaking hands? And what are the branches? So I feel there's a big scope today in orthopedics. Dr. Vaibhav talked about a lot. Dr. Himanshu also talked about a lot. I think a lot of surgeons will also talk about you. Orthopedics is major uses. Cardiothoracic surgery, more on prototype and planning. But I think the days are coming not far away when we'll use them for additive manufactured implants. Neurosurgery, yes, we do a lot of work. Maxillofacial surgery, big time, and plastic ENT. Soft tissues are already there. Some more again, all for diagnostic purposes or for planning. I do not know how effective they're going to be because they're still very, very, very expensive. So I wish the manufacturers could come up with and especially from your clients who deal with the face. Try to ask that for 1 slice or lesser than that. Because the more thinner the slices, yes, your software can pick it up very nicely and you will be able to do it. The problem that I faced with this is sometimes the doctor, mostly in orthopedics when we did initially, they would take it at 5 slice thickness and they say this is what is possible. And then one manufacturer would print it with the 5 slice thickness and give the anatomy to the doctor. And obviously, so which means 5 is a big space, right? So you will have a lot of step deformities in the model. And therefore, the surgeon would come to a point and saying, John, the model is not nice. This is not what I wanted. That's because you did not tell the doctor what correct specifications that you want, right? So please give a correct specification to the surgeon to take when he's taking the CT scan or to the patient. Therefore, he does a good job in bringing in the right output for the model and for planning. Virtual planning, surgical planning, a lot of people are talking about it. Uh, this is the game changer. A lot of tools have come today for virtual surgical planning. The haptic is again one of an amazing and awesome tool. A lot of people are using haptics for designing, for planning. Uh, uh, Without the haptics, also you still can do an amazing job with a lot of softwares but there. So that's concentrate a lot on virtual surgical planning today because the more time we were talking also yesterday to a hospital or setup, the more time the planning team, the more time the engineers and the doctors sit together and plan, the less time they spend on the OT table, right? Because everything is organized. We sit for plans. Mahesh would know one of our clients is also Amrita Hospital. We sit for plans for almost 3 to 4 days at a stretch. Sometimes it goes even for weeks with the doctors. But that's the way, because we do that kind of a time that you spend on the planning, the entire output that you give is beautiful. No errors. All that the doctor does is open up, resect, place the implant, and then comes out. That is where we need to go on. No adjustments after that. Still, problems can happen, yes, but then this is where the more time you spend on planning, be it virtual, be it physical with your models, the faster your surgeries are and the quicker you get your patient out of the OT. And finally, is improved material choice of materials. Titanium today is definitely the game changer and is a material of choice. We work with titanium a lot. TI6AL4V, there's a medical grade titanium. There are other materials that are coming in. PEEK is also there for non-weight bearing areas. PEC is also come up big time. And bioceramics also come in. And slowly, I think soft tissue printing will also be there. But right now, I think what we have is TI, and I think we need to. That's the maximum used over here for reconstructive surgical replacement options. So the biggest applications, according to me, is in prototype, sprints, virtual planning, and custom-made implants. So let's look at a few cases that we did, and probably I'll just show you. I think during COVID, one of the industries, like I said, was pretty busy. Was maxillofacial industry. and additive manufacturing. So this is a case that came to us from Ramachandra, and okay, now so trauma here. So this bone had refractured and had come out over there. This bone had refractured. So ideal situation for this would be okay when the doctor goes back to the procedure is cut this bone, what you see over here, and place it over here. So okay, so cut. I would rather cut this over here and place it like this, or cut this bone. Can you see this big gap and position it? So, but how does he do it if it's just a CT scan? No, like you're guessing, you're doing a lot of guesswork. Most of the plan that when I started my practice would be on table, no, like, but you would open up the patient and then you realize, boss, you need this kind of a plate, you need this kind of a plan. Oh my God, the fracture is going even through and through. But now that's an excuse. I cannot give it as an excuse in today's world. So the best way to do it, and the way this we help the Ramachandra team work on this, is by working on a prototype model and giving them a. We refractured the whole fragment. So we actually did a whole fracturing. So once we fracture this fragment, these two fragments, then we reposition it. So that's the easy part. Okay. Now once you reposition, then you know where you are. Now, but once you reposition, you need to give them a stabilizing splint, right? So this works on a guide. So we gave them a guide to help them reposition the fragment. And once they reposition the fragment, then they need to start plating it. So now your options for plating could be, yes, I use standard plates over here, a standard plate to join the FZ junction and join the zygomatic and the maxillary here. So just use mini plates and I could be done with it, and also on the arch. But this is a huge chunk of bone. This can again relapse. It can push because the muscles are going to be pulling it towards one side, right? So the best way we thought was to make a customized implant. So this is the design of the implant that we did. Looked pretty big when we started, but then okay, then we started trimming it, trimming it. The total weight of this implant was only 18 grams. This piece. So he said, okay, can we do it as two pieces, which was very easy because you have the whole thing restored. But the problem with this is, if there's any problem with the doctor or any difficulty on surgery, you can't adapt it. The plate, you have to throw the plate. So we said, why don't we do it as two pieces? That's the plan. That's the implant that we designed. And this is, we have I think it's about 3 weeks now. So far, so good. And the feedback was extremely good because they restored the entire aesthetics of the patient's face and also restored the volume of the globe. Most important when we do orbital surgeries is restore the volume. So you need to check the volume of the globe that was lost and then try to restore it. Okay. Another case here, again, this is from Dr. Srikanth from Bangalore. Entire maxilla gone because of trauma. Ideal scenarios would be grafted and then put in a prosthesis, getting it done. 3 months down the road, okay, or 6 months, and then you start putting in dental implants and do it. But this patient didn't want to do it, and the doctor said, John, we are short of time. And what can we work? So thanks to Additive, we had an option. This is the way the patient's face looked. So we worked on this with models. We worked a lot on prototype models because it gives you a hand feeling. I mean, we started working with we went from drawing, model, virtual, and then we realized we were making mistakes. I mean, it's not that we are perfect, right? We do make mistakes in our design. Then we said, okay, let's come back onto paperwork. So we draw everything first, and then my engineers and my designers sit and get the design done. Then we sit it and check it on the prototype model, see if everything fits well to them. And once the fitting is done, then the doctors are invited to join along. That's the biggest advantage which we saw. I mean, actually, I'm sharing in one of our trade secrets. Okay, so but doctors come in on your virtual planning. We sit, we get the planning done with them, and then we design the implant, and that's it. So that's the way we designed it. It's a block technique from down. We went on top. We designed the processes first, and then we designed the implant. Not many people today can do that, I think. But yeah, but this is so we saw that the patient had already plates and screws from his primary trauma surgery. We didn't want to destroy that. We didn't want to open that because I knew if we open that, the entire fragment will fall. So we said we'll keep it as is. So this is where your design comes in, because I think the biggest challenge is in getting the right design. And many a times, engineers should start thinking that, boss, when you design it on an open skull, right, or a STL model, it's so easy here because you don't have muscles, you don't have nerves, you don't have blood vessels, you have full 360-degree access. But that's not the case when you operate, right? There has to be a very, very clear understanding. The surgeon will open it only so much. Like, for example, in this case, if he's doing his cut will only be from here, and from here he's going to open up only so much. So you will have to see that your implant goes in, which means that we can't shape it the way we want to shape it. There has to be a certain pattern that goes into it. That comes over time and repeatedly keeping on doing things. I mean, we initially also had bulky implants that we were designing, but thankfully, by God's grace, we learned faster and then we were able to rectify that. So this is the customized implant that we did. The maximum width that we give is about either 1.7 or 2 mm max. This is the pattern. This is the patient's bone. The plate's still over there. Luckily, they had removed it. Though we had given a slot, the doctor had removed it. He said, John, I didn't want to keep that, and that caused another infection later on. So fully secure over there. That's the abutment starts that come in. That's the patient's X-ray, the processes, the way he looks. And this, I think we have right now, I think a 1-year follow-up of this case. So far, so good. Now we are coming up from these straight abutments. We're removing these abutments and we're giving them screw-ridden processes, whereby you don't have anything exposed on day one. Close it fully, let it heal, and then you can open it up. Again, innovation. You start working on it, start doing a couple of cases, you know where the faults are, you know where the deficiencies are, and stuff. We could do that only because of additive. If not for additive, we could never do that. That patient could never have his face restored if there was no additive solutions. All right. Again, another case for the orbit, live trauma before, most of the time that you see it's after resection that they come in. But this was the case. The doctor said, John, tumor is there, it's live. I need to operate on this patient. We had a time limit. We did from the time we got the scan to the planning to the implant in 5 working days. So we said, John, I mean, this was something we said, John, I'm going to remove the entire orbit, and half of the orbit, this part is going to go. Probably this part will also go in. So accordingly, start planning. So that's where the plan could be. You're thinking how the surgeon is going to access, plan it, design the implant accordingly, and get it done. So this is the orbit. We mirrored it as usual. We saw what was the best plan possible, how the doctor could access it. We knew as a one piece it would be very easy, but it would be very difficult for doctor to insert because I mean this is going to be like more like a subciliary incision that is going to place on into the eye, right? So the incision will only be like this. So so how thin can you insert this? So we saw how thin can we make our plates. Sometimes we say, okay, can our plates be thin? Yeah, I mean we've tried the thinnest that I have tried in additive manufacturing is 0.8. It doesn't flex. So far, so good. It doesn't flex. When we went a little thinner, we had a situation where the implant, when we did it for a weight bearing area, the implant broke. We've had a set of failures. Again, I say so we experimented with plus or minus sizes. For the orbits, non-weight bearing area, 0.8 we can go. I think we can stretch it a little bit more, but not more than 0.6 or 0.7. I think more than less than that, you will start bending, it will break, and it will break. So we set 2 different patterns, gave the surgeon a flexibility of in case even if he wants to resect a little bit more, the implant will still accommodate. So that's the planning. See how your planning is extremely important here because even the width over here, see this dimension that you're going to keep also is important. So this is the same dimension, the space the doctor needs to keep. Can you see that? So that's how well you plan, and sometimes you need to instruct the surgeons also. We have seen surgeons when we work with us and say, "No, I want it like this." Many a times I have put my foot down. Luckily, thanks because I'm also a surgeon. Said, "No, sir, this can't be done like this because this is the problem A, B, C, D." And then we've said, "Okay." Then after surgery, they've always come back and said, "John, glad we listened to you." So again, that's over. We run it through a panel of doctors because I think we have for each section, for reconstruction, for joints, we have a team of surgeons to work along with. So we run it along with them and say, okay, now what is your opinion about this? Is this the right way? I mean, like I said, STARS is not a one-stop shop, right? It's not the answer for everything. But yes, it can give you best solutions because it's got a very solid team backing it up. This is again a very recent case that came in from Kerala, from Dr. Matthews. Again, a very young surgeon, but extremely dynamic surgeon, a patient who had an asymmetric face. All right, see the face, how the patient looks. Okay, this was a very young girl, I think, who wanted to look at her wedding, and a young girl who wanted to look nice. But how do I correct this face? Patient's joints is not there. I think they have done a joint surgery, they've done a resection, and it didn't work out fine. This is very complex. This needs extensive planning. So what we said is we put it on the table. We start, okay, this is the way the patient looks. How do we move the mandible? We did a lot of counterclockwise movements of the maxilla and the mandible, moved it differentially to see how good it is. Thanks to Nemo, Nemo is the software that we use now for our orthognathic planning. Awesome work Nemo does. I'm glad for that team to have helped us with that software. So this is the planning that we work. So we say, okay, if I can move the software, this works. The mandible is like this, the maxilla is like this. So accordingly, what we said then we need to start cutting on the maxilla. So the choice of whether you want to use the maxilla first or the mandible first, again, goes by experience with you and the operating surgeon. This is the way the patient used to bite. Can you see this slant? We call it the cant in medical terms. This needs to be corrected. So for it to correct, see this how it is after the correction. So this is the plan. So the entire jaw had to be moved on one side, keeping one side as normal, and then moving it across. And then how do you fix this? Movement is fine, but we need to fix it right now, right? So we fixed it with a custom-made implant, an entire implant that was designed to accommodate the space so that it stands straight and with the fossa component. So we gave them a leafwood cutting guide. That's something that we've started now, a titanium implant, glenoid fossa. So all this is done with 3D printing. So if we thought we were only there, no, we do today with 3D printing. A lot of companies do this. So we are not the only company that does it, guys. A lot of companies in India also do that. But then I don't know whether most of them do it with such extensive planning. So the choice is yours. But then I think most of them do a decent job. Cutting guides can be given now. So this is what I mean. Amrita does. We do a lot of cutting guides with it, and the team from Amrita is what we learned on a lot of these cutting guides. So thank Dr. Pramod and Dr. Abe for helping me a lot on designing this cutting guide. See that these guides are secure so that it gets the best precise cut, because it's important that they cut well. We had a surgeon who reported to us and say, John, the maximum time it took me after I resected to place my implant and come out was 7 minutes. That is where we need to start looking at. Open the flap, put your cutting guides. Once your cutting is done, positioning the implant should only be 7 to 10 minutes, not more than that, because it is made to order for this patient, right? So that's where we are. So today we do customized leafwood osteotomy. I think this is, as far as I know, this is the first time in the country that we've tried working on this. This was done for Manipal Hospital with Dr. Abe sir and Dr. Mustafa sir and the joint. And so I think lots of things can be done with this. And this thickness is about 1 mm. The standard plate, this thickness was about 1.6 mm of this leafwood plate. The normal mini plate fixation that we do is about 0.4 and 0.5. We can't go there because they need to flex, they need to adapt there. This is only in situations where you think the segment that you're moving needs to be very stable. You don't want any movement after that. Because when we do an orthognathic case or a jaw corrective surgery, you realize that there's a lot of relapse that happens when you move it above 7 mm or above 5 to 6 mm itself. There's a lot of relapse that happens. So when you make big movements of the jaws, you want it to be very stable. In those situations, and when you do a lot of differential movements, this is differential movements in the sense you want to have the maxilla go up about 5 millimeters, you want the maxillary left side going down, then this is the ideal case scenario. This is an ideal situation. Otherwise, kindly use your conventional plates and screws because they are much better and much cheaper than this. So that's the leafwood plate that we printed and it's placed in the patient mouth successfully. So like I said, I'll come back to the conventional methodology. We said scanning, selecting, and surgery. So how different is it going to be when we do digital additive technology? Scanning is the same. The biggest difference is we spend a lot of time planning, customized planning. You can never take another plan and put it. We have done close to about plannings. I think we've done close to about 1,650 plans. So which means that you have a good library of plans. Most of the times what I do is, most of the situations we know this is the sample case. So I say, doctor, this is something that we have done. Look at it, see if this makes sense, and then we modify the plan according to that. Not all plans need to go in for customizing plan. I'm telling you again now, majority of the time we can do a good plan, give the doctor the option to do a standard implant itself. It's not always that we do a customized implant. Situations when standard implants or mini plates cannot be used, that's the time that we need to start looking at customized implants. You understand? That's I'm very clear in the policy. I don't rush into making customized PSI. I tell my doctors very clearly. We work with Apollo Hospital in Chennai. We do implants for them, and then we realize okay, a lot of these patients are patients who come in with malignant lesions. So we say, sir, why do we want to do implants? Though today titanium can be used in malignant situation, there are enough articles to say that it will not cause or deter. But then if there is going to be screw loosening or bone loss or the lesion further progresses, then you lose the implant. So I tell them, sir, can't we mirror it? Can we do a good model, make a mirrored model, do a good plan, give you the plan, and accordingly start adapting your place to it. That we do day in and day out now for hospitals over here. So which means this is what we done. The time taken maximum for you to plan would be about 24 to 48 hours, depending on how fast they want it, and yeah, obviously how much they prepare to pay. And then you prepare a model, do a pre-op and a post-op model. That is the game changer today for that we found, and I think most manufacturing companies or startups can use that. Post-op models, just not enough pre-op. You need to start giving the doctors how will the patient look post-operatively when he's doing a recurrent surgery. I have not done that for. I have done it purely only for head and neck. So head and neck, I will talk. Other parts of the body, I have not gone there. Don't intend to go there also in the near future. But this, we are pretty confident and happy with this. And lastly, customized implant. Design it, fix it, put the screws in, close it. That's the way you need. Fill it, shut it, forget it. That's the way it is when we do customized implant. Okay, so that's something that you guys can think. So what's the future? I'm glad Dr. Mahesh picked up about AR and for visualization for treatment. That's the future that's going to look at with planning. Bioprinting is coming in big time. We may not be there as close, but I think we are almost getting there. I think great work is being done by Dr. Jayesh Bellari in IIT Bombay, and we'll be collaborating with him with a couple of regenerative options with him. I think Big Innovation also does some work. So a lot of work is being done by a lot of companies with soft tissue and regenerative medicine. Dentistry, a lot of regenerative medicine publications are there. So that's something that you guys can start exploring. I mean, I'm not that brainy enough to look at that as an option, but if somebody's doing it, we don't mind joining along. So my theme is if I can't fly, you run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you do, keep moving forward. It's not been an easy journey. It's been a very, very tough journey. All these 5 years that we've been with the industry, with Stars as a company. Uh, but then we moved forward. We never let any situation stop us, uh, and hopefully we will go on from strength to strength. Some of our articles, our publications that came out on the press for Baron, and this was the first time that we did it. Came in 2016 for years again, and hopefully more will come in over the times. Over this, when we were actually nobody, the biggest encouragement came from Trinity Media, from Shibu and his team. So that encouraged us when we received it in 2017. We had done very limited work. We were in a year, in I think 2017 when we did, we were only doing about 6 or 7 implants a year. Today we do about 15 implants a month. That's how the volume is. And we want to look at 25 implants a month. I think hopefully by Jan, I think a lot of support is coming in. We are getting it from Premium. Premium Technologies, a new company in Chennai is starting. Pune, there's a lot of companies there. 3D Incredible is doing good. Dr. Shiva from Confident has been a big support to us. Be giving us exclusive maxillofacial implants. So therefore, I mean, a lot of people have asked us about certifications. John, how good, how sure? If my house is going to be only for my family, then I know they are safe. They are secure, right? That's the way I would look at it. So this is it. So Stars is there. We do customized implant, jaw cutter surgeries, splints, dental implant guides, prototype models. We have a few advantages, so let's not go to that. We work right now with 325 hospitals, and we have designed close to 295. The 296th and the 297th implant is getting ready today. Tomorrow, hopefully, it will go for printing. We do some work. I mean, we are there. It's been quite a big journey, but I think we will do that. And we are recently certified. So this is something which I wanted this as a platform for people to have a look at it. So that's the reason why we said okay. And Shibu has been very, very supportive again for this. So today we are as good as any company for designing and stuff like that. And our new international partners has been Crash. We working exclusively with them for in Canada for digital dentistry, and we would move on into the other products in digital slowly in as phase two. So big support of pillars have been my family who stood through thick and thin. Uh, Even with the loss of my mother, I think she's been there on top, guiding and blessing us. And a big thanks to our team of engineers. I mean, we worked. I think even during COVID, they worked very, very hard. All of them had work from home, but they worked extremely hard during this time to see that the doctors were they were never kept waiting. A lot of planning we did, even without taking a single pie from a lot of people. But I think in the end it works. So a lot of my doctors, I mean, that's the relationship we build, right? They're not just your clients; they are people who share with you. You get to know what's happening. You sit with them. A lot of my team doctors call me on table when they're operating. Say, John, this is where we are. Are you okay with this? Can we go ahead with that? So that's the kind of relationship that I have with my clients that who work along with me. So we are available for doctors. We are available. I'm available 24/7, and a lot of my mentors, Dr. Yus Chandrasekhar sir, Ilango, uh, uh, Dr. Guru Prasad for Imaginarium. I mean, if I have missed something, I mean, Dr. Shiva again from Confident has been my big mentor. A lot of mentors, a lot of our partners. We are joining a lot of partners now, uh, hopefully from other countries also. So that's something that will hopefully take it forward. So thank you guys. I hope I didn't drag this too long. And if there's anything that you guys can contact me on this. Thank you. Shibu, I'm done. Too long.
Okay, Doc. Okay, Doc. Thank you so much. And it was indeed always, as usual, a good presentation. You covered so much of intricacies of what you've been doing, and I'm so happy for you, Doctor. Now that you become a global entrepreneur, so I think the stage is set for you in terms of you being one of the companies also going global with UK and London to be at Canada, sorry, Canada being one of the hubs that you have set up. So all the best, and I'm sure there is much to come from you in terms of innovation in 3D printing and also the scale that you would want to grow. So all the very best, and I'm sure tomorrow's session is also going to be interesting, where you would also be representing as somebody who is looking at an opportunity for investment. So we have one session audience for tomorrow, which is also covering startup companies who have come up with.
So we will look at that. There is something where we look at what are the problems. There I'll be sharing in what are the problems we faced, some of the mistakes we did as a startup, and what you guys shouldn't be doing. It took us some time for us to be where we are. It doesn't have to be so long. I think with the right kind of team and the right approach, you guys can make it big faster. That's something we will cover there.
Yeah. So I think overall, I think morning covered all the clinicians coming from various different specializations. The second half, as we discussed even earlier, that is going to talk about 3D printing and AI and how technologies can help companies and clinicians and respondents to benefit. And tomorrow, I mean, we have a parallel track already going on 3D printing and prosthetics in terms of companies coming and sharing their insights. So I think it was a good journey for us as a company. Thank you so much, Doctor, for your journey, to be a part of this journey, for us to share insights on this technology going forward. Thank you so much. Now we will actually take questions from the audience, if there is any, please.
I was just looking at it. I don't think there's any questions. Either most of them didn't understand what I was talking, or
no, there's questions come from Ganesh.
Ganesh, he's another very very enterprising surgeon that I work along with. Very innovative. Okay, somebody who thinks out of the box. So, and they do great work in Vijayawada. So they do the amazing work over there. So I think he's coming. He's talking tomorrow. That's something that you guys should watch in for the different approaches that they have towards how they approach the surgical work.
Yeah. Okay. So and then you have Jitendra.
Jitu has always Jitu has always been our pal and friend. I think 5 years now. So I'm glad for where you are, Jitu. Hope to work more, yeah, with you and the team. Uh, a lot of the software when we started, Jitu was the one who helped. I mean, we didn't know A, B, C of that, right? So Jitu, so all that. These are guys who where we started. Never forget them, and hope to work along with them soon.
Yeah. And Dr. Jayesh sir was also responded. So good.
Of course, the master there. We have a lot to learn from Dr. Jayesh, and that's a branch which we need to focus on. I think the younger generations could start. I mean, most of us don't know, Shibu. See, most of us don't know that work is being done uh, in IIT in Bombay, and how do we approach that? So I think that I think even JS sir, when even when you talk, I think start looking at how do young doctors from other branches or specialties, how do they approach? Because that's something which we don't know, right? It's not a very commercially viable option at the moment, but it's an extremely rich academically oriented option for what you're doing. So how do we do that? And IIT Bombay has got great people along with them. So I think that's something which we should just use of.
So we've been going through the hard way in terms of convincing all these researchers and scientists who have also come on board. So tomorrow is going to be interesting, as I did mention in the morning.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Dr. Shantanu, Dr. So I think
Yeah,
it'll be
thanks, Thiru. Thiru's always been a big support for me throughout the journey. Jigasu, yeah, hi Jigasu. Sorry, I don't communicate with you, but hope to work on your software soon. Ketan sir, yes, we would definitely love to talk with you and see what we can do. Dr. Rocky, thank you. Yeah, Jitu's always there. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much
for being a part of the session, and I'm sure there is much to come as we progress through the day and also tomorrow. So thank you so much. Thank you. And yeah, thanks. Thanks, Doctor.